Arms up.
You're on the bike. Stop right there.
Yes, officer. Is everything okay?
I need to see some ID now.
Of course, officer. May I reach into my breast pocket for my military ID?
Hands where I can see them. Don't reach anywhere.
I'm complying, sir. I'm not
Officer James White had no idea who he had just chased down on that iconic bridge. In the next few hours, one badge would be permanently removed, the city would be ordered to pay millions in a civil settlement, and the real victim would turn out to be a dedicated undercover hero who was simply trying to keep families safe from poison on our streets. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power simply because of the color of your skin or the way you looked that day? Drop your honest answer in the comments. Now let me tell you about the man at the center of this nightmare. The real hero whose only mistake was riding a bicycle while black on one of the most famous bridges in America. His name was Malik Johnson, and he was the kind of man who made the world better just by being in it. Malik Johnson was born on March 12, 1988, in a tight-knit working-class neighborhood in Oakland, California. His father worked double shifts as a city bus driver, and his mother was a home health aide who cared for elderly patients long after her own shift ended. From the moment he could walk, Malik showed a gentle heart that never changed. At age 6, he gave his only winter coat to a classmate whose family could not afford one. Teachers still talk about the day he stayed after school for 3 hours to help a struggling friend learn to read, missing his own soccer practice without complaint. School records show Malik graduated from Oakland Technical High School in 2006 with a 3.9 GPA while holding down a part-time job at the local community garden. He turned down several college scholarships because he felt called to serve his country first. At 19, he enlisted in the United States Air Force. His instructors quickly noticed his natural calm under pressure and his gift for leadership. Over the next 10 years, Malik logged more than 1,400 flight hours as a pilot, earning multiple commendations for mission excellence and mentorship. In 2014, during a training flight over the Pacific, his wingman suffered sudden engine failure. Malik stayed on the radio for 97 straight minutes, talking his colleague through emergency procedures until both aircraft landed safely. The Air Force awarded him the Air Medal for that day. Malik never bragged. Instead, he used his position to lift others. He organized weekend tutoring sessions for children of enlisted personnel on base. He volunteered at food banks and mentored young black airmen who faced the same quiet biases he had quietly overcome. Colleagues remember him as the officer who would spend his off-duty hours repairing bicycles for kids in military housing so they could ride to school safely. He once drove 4 hours round trip on his only day off to attend the funeral of a fellow airman's mother because he knew the family had no other support. After an honorable discharge in 2018, Malik joined the Drug Enforcement Administration. His pilot skills and undercover aptitude made him perfect for high-risk operations. By 2022, at 34 years old, Malik had already completed 6 successful long-term undercover assignments that resulted in the seizure of more than $23 million in narcotics and the arrest of over 40 high-level traffickers. He was married to his high school sweetheart Sophia for 8 years. Together, they were raising a 5-year-old daughter named Emma and a 3-year-old son named Jamal. Malik never missed bedtime stories, even when he had to call from a secure line at 2 in the morning. On weekends, he coached his son's soccer team and helped organize free aviation workshops for underprivileged kids at a community center in San Francisco, telling them that the sky belonged to anyone willing to work for it. Malik stood 6 feet 1 inch tall with an athletic build honed by years of military fitness. He kept his black hair cut short and neat, and his warm brown eyes always carried a quiet kindness that could ease tension in any room. That day, he wore his full Air Force pilot uniform as part of a carefully constructed undercover identity. The crisp blue service coat with silver wings, the name tag reading Johnson, and the polished shoes were all part of his role in a major DEA operation targeting a sophisticated trafficking ring that used private aviation connections to move large shipments across state lines. The bicycle he rode was a standard black Trek mountain bike chosen, specifically because it allowed him to move discreetly through tourist areas without drawing the kind of attention a government vehicle would attract. Malik was heading to a scheduled meet with a confidential informant near the south end of the Golden Gate Bridge. His mind was focused but peaceful. He thought about the weekend barbecue he had promised his children. He thought about the thank you note his daughter had drawn for him the night before. He pedaled at a steady pace, enjoying the light breeze and the view of the bay sparkling under the August sun. Malik Johnson was exactly the kind of man America should celebrate. A father, a veteran, a federal agent risking his life every single day to protect communities from the devastation of drugs. And yet on that sunny afternoon, one man in a police uniform decided that a black man on a bicycle Even one wearing an Air Force pilot uniform had to be a thief. Let me know in the comments if you have ever seen a pattern like this in your own town or city. If you believe good men like Malik deserve protection instead of suspicion, type justice right now in the comments below. Now let's talk about the man who turned a routine afternoon into a nightmare for an innocent federal agent. His name was Officer James White, a 39-year-old patrol officer with the San Francisco Police Department. White stood 5 feet 11 inches tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped blonde hair already thinning at the crown and pale blue eyes that rarely showed warmth. He carried himself with the kind of swagger that made some colleagues roll their eyes behind his back. On paper, he looked like a typical beat cop, 11 years on the force, mostly traffic and patrol duties, but dig just a little deeper and a troubling pattern emerges. James White grew up in a small suburb outside Sacramento. His father was a retired mechanic, his mother a part-time receptionist. Nothing remarkable about his childhood except one thing: he learned early that raising his voice usually got him what he wanted. High school football gave him a taste of authority on the field, and he never quite let it go after graduation. He joined the SFPD Academy in 2011 at age 24. Instructors noted his physical fitness but also flagged overly assertive communication style in training scenarios. He graduated anyway. By 2015, White had racked up his first sustained complaint. A black pedestrian on Market Street claimed White shoved him against a wall during a jaywalking stop, then threatened to make his day worse if he filed paperwork. Internal Affairs ruled it unsubstantiated because the body camera footage mysteriously cut out for 90 seconds. White kept his job. In 2017, another incident. During a noise complaint call in the Mission District, White arrested a 22-year-old Latino man for resisting, after the man asked why officers were shining flashlights in his face at 1 a.m. The man spent 14 hours in holding before charges were dropped. Video from a nearby doorbell camera showed White twisting the man's arm far beyond what policy allowed. Again, training was recommended, no suspension. The complaints kept coming, always minor on paper, always involving people of color. In 2019, White responded to a domestic disturbance call. Neighbors reported hearing him yell racial slurs through the door before backup arrived. The couple inside said White threatened to drag them both out if they didn't open up faster. No formal discipline followed because the complainants later withdrew their statements after White visited their home off-duty to check on their safety, according to department logs. In 2020, during widespread protests following George Floyd's murder, White was assigned crowd control near City Hall. Body-worn camera footage later released in a civil suit showed him pushing an older black woman to the ground when she tried to cross the street to reach her bus. She suffered a fractured wrist. White wrote in his report that she lunged aggressively. 3 witnesses contradicted him. The city quietly settled with the woman for $285,000 in 2021. White received a written reprimand and 40 hours of de-escalation training. He was back on patrol within a week. Colleagues described White as someone who liked to win every encounter. He frequently bragged in the locker room about teaching lessons to people who didn't know their place. Multiple officers later told investigators they had seen him turn off his body camera before approaching certain individuals, usually young black or brown men. One sergeant admitted under oath that White once said, quote, "Some people only understand force, and I'm happy to speak that language." By August 2022, James White had accumulated 7 separate use of force incidents in his file, 4 of them involving tasers. Department policy required review after 3 in a 12-month period, but somehow White's reviews kept concluding within policy. He drove a black and white Ford Explorer, badge number 4782, and carried department-issue Glock 17 and X-26P taser. On that particular afternoon, he was working solo patrol along the Presidio approach to the Golden Gate Bridge, looking for suspicious activity among the weekend tourists. White later claimed in his incident report that he spotted a black male in what appeared to be stolen military attire riding a bicycle that did not match his profile. He never explained what profile meant. What he did next would change both their lives forever. Type justice for Malik if you think officers with repeated complaints should lose their badges long before they ruin an innocent life. August 14, 2022, 3:47 p.m. Pacific Time. The Golden Gate Bridge pedestrian walkway. Clear skies, temperature 78 degrees Fahrenheit, light breeze from the bay carrying the faint salt smell. Tourists snapped photos of the red-orange towers against the blue water. Cyclists and joggers moved steadily in both directions. Traffic hummed on the roadway below. Malik Johnson pedaled northbound at a calm 12 miles per hour. His black Trek mountain bike had no basket, no bag, just him in full Air Force Service dress uniform, silver pilot wings gleaming on his chest. He wore dark aviator sunglasses and white gloves, standard for the dress uniform. Underneath the calm exterior, his mind ran checklists. Meet the CI at the South Vista point in 11 minutes, exchange coded phrases, confirm shipment route, extract without breaking cover. Routine, safe, controlled. Officer James White sat in his black and white Ford Explorer parked at the Presidio turnout. Engine idling, radio low. He sipped lukewarm coffee from a paper cup. His eyes scanned the bridge path through polarized sunglasses. Then he saw him, black male, military-looking uniform, riding what looked like a fairly new bike. White's jaw tightened. In his mind, the math didn't add up. Military guys drove cars or took shuttles. Not bikes in full dress blues on a tourist bridge. Suspicious. Stolen property, impersonating an officer. Either way, White decided this needed checking. At 3:49 p.m. White flipped on his overhead lights, no siren, and eased the SUV onto the service access road parallel to the walkway. He rolled down the passenger window. "Hey, you on the bike. Stop right there," Malik heard the command clearly over the wind. He glanced left, saw the patrol car, saw the lights, no panic. Federal agents are trained for this. He slowed smoothly, coasted to the railing, planted both feet on the ground, and turned to face the officer. Hands visible, posture relaxed but alert. "Yes, officer, is everything okay?" White killed the engine, stepped out, hand resting on his holstered Glock. He approached with long strides, boots loud on the pavement. "I need to see some ID, now." Malik kept both hands on the handlebars. "Of course, officer, may I reach into my breast pocket for my military ID and driver's license?" White's voice rose half an octave. "Hands where I can see them, don't reach anywhere until I tell you." Malik froze, slowly raised both palms shoulder high. "I'm complying, sir, I'm just letting you know where my identification is." White closed the distance to about 8 feet. "What are you doing out here in that uniform? You steal that bike?" Malik's tone stayed even, almost gentle. "No, sir, this is my personal bicycle. The uniform is legitimate. I'm United States Air Force. Active duty until recently, now federal service." White snorted. "Federal service on a bike? You expect me to believe that?" He gestured sharply. "Get off the bike." Slowly, Malik dismounted carefully, keeping the bicycle between them as a buffer. He set the kickstand. "Officer, I'm happy to show you credentials. I'm also carrying federal credentials in the same pocket. Would you like me to retrieve them one at a time?" White's face flushed red. "I said hands where I can see them. You think you can talk your way out of this?" He stepped closer, boots scuffing. "Turn around." Hands on the railing. Malik complied without hesitation, palms flat on the cold metal railing, feet shoulder width. "I'm turning around as requested, officer. I'm not resisting." White moved in fast. He grabbed Malik's left wrist, yanked it behind his back, then the right. "You're under arrest for suspicion of theft and impersonating a military officer." Malik spoke calmly over his shoulder. "Officer, I'm a federal agent, DEA. This is an active undercover operation. If you check my credentials, you'll see—" "Shut up," White barked. He ratcheted handcuffs tight around Malik's wrists. Too tight. Malik winced but said nothing. White spun him around roughly. "You people always have some story." Malik met his eyes. "Sir, this is unnecessary. I have not resisted. Please loosen the cuffs. They're cutting circulation." White ignored him. Instead, he reached for his taser. "You're gonna learn to respect authority today." Before Malik could respond, White raised the X-26P and pressed it directly against Malik's chest, right over the ribbon rack. Pulled the trigger. The electric crack split the air. 50,000 volts surged through Malik's body. His legs buckled instantly. He collapsed forward, forehead striking the railing with a dull thud. The bicycle toppled sideways. Malik hit the concrete hard on his side, still cuffed, body jerking from the neuromuscular incapacitation. A low groan escaped his lips, the only sound he made. White stood over him, breathing heavy. "Stop resisting." 2 tourists 30 yards away already had phones out. Filming, a jogger slowed, shocked. A family with kids hurried past, shielding eyes. White rolled Malik onto his stomach, knee in the small of his back. "Stay down," Malik voice strained through clenched teeth. "I'm not resisting, officer, please, medical attention." White ignored the plea. He radioed dispatch. "One in custody, suspect on the bridge walkway. Possible stolen property and impersonation, requesting transport." Malik lay there, cheek pressed to warm concrete, uniform now scuffed and dirtied, pilot wings askew, breathing shallow, thoughts racing, operation compromised. CI waiting, family, but mostly one clear realization: this wasn't random. This was the look in White's eyes, the tone, the speed to violence. This was about something deeper than a bicycle. If this kind of instant escalation makes you angry, type "no excuse" below right now. White ignored the plea. He kept his knee planted hard between Malik's shoulder blades, grinding the uniform jacket into the concrete. "Stop resisting," he shouted again, even though Malik hadn't moved a muscle since the taser hit. The aftershock still rippled through Malik's body, every muscle burning like fire, chest tight, breath coming in short gasps. The taste of blood was in his mouth from where his forehead had struck the railing. White's hands moved fast and rough. He flipped Malik onto his side, patted down the legs, the ankles, the waistband. Then he tore open the left breast pocket and yanked out the thin leather wallet. He flipped it open under the bright afternoon sun. The gold DEA badge gleamed. The credentials were crystal clear. Special Agent Malik Johnson, Drug Enforcement Administration, valid photo, hologram intact, expiration date 2 years out. White stared for 2 full seconds. Then he snorted. Nice try, this is counterfeit. I've seen better fakes. He shoved the wallet into his own vest pocket like it was evidence of a crime. Malik, voice strained but steady. Officer, that is my real federal credentials. Please call the number on the card. DEA San Francisco field office, they will confirm everything. White leaned down close, breath hot on Malik's ear. You people always got some story, don't you? Shut your mouth. He turned to the bicycle, ripped open the small saddle bag. Inside, only a half-empty water bottle and a protein bar. No tools, no drugs, no stolen goods. The bike itself was clean, serial number visible. Nothing. White stood up, breathing heavy. Dispatch, suspects searched, nothing recovered. Still charging theft of bicycle, impersonating a federal officer and resisting arrest with violence. Transporting to Central Station now. He hauled Malik to his feet. Malik's legs buckled once from the taser effects. White caught him roughly by the cuffed wrists, sending fresh pain shooting up both arms. The steel dug deep into the skin, already leaving red grooves. Malik's once crisp Air Force uniform was now scuffed, dirt-stained, one shoulder seam torn. The silver pilot wings sat crooked on his chest. Tourists stared. One woman covered her child's eyes. White marched him to the patrol car, shoved him into the back seat and slammed the door. Watch your head, he said with a mocking laugh. The cage pressed cold against Malik's face. The drive took 18 long minutes. White kept glancing in the rearview mirror. You think that uniform makes you better than me? I see guys like you every single day, acting like the rules don't apply. Well, today they do. Malik said nothing. He protected the undercover operation with silence. Inside his head, he repeated the names of his children, Emma, Jamal, and prayed the confidential informant had not been compromised. His shoulders ached from the cuffs, his forehead throbbed, but his voice stayed calm when he finally spoke. Officer, I have not resisted, I have identified myself. This is unnecessary force. White laughed again. Save it for the judge. At 4:07 p.m. they pulled into the Sally Port of San Francisco Police Central Station on Bryant Street. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. White dragged Malik inside. The booking sergeant, a middle-aged Latino man named Ruiz, raised an eyebrow at the full pilot uniform. What's this? White answered loud enough for everyone to hear. Black male, suspected bike thief, impersonating military and federal officer. Tased after he resisted. Credentials are fake. Sergeant Ruiz looked at Malik's face, the bruise forming on his forehead, the bent wings. He looks pretty real to me, White shrugged. They always do until you dig. They photographed Malik front side, hands still cuffed behind his back, fingerprints taken while he stood in pain. No one offered water. No one checked the taser marks on his chest. They placed him in a small holding cell. Cuffs stayed on. 47 minutes passed. Malik sat on the cold steel bench, back straight despite the burning in his shoulders, thinking of the Air Force instructors who taught him composure under fire. He had faced enemy radar, engine flames, and cartel threats. He would not break here. At 5:12 p.m., they moved him to Interrogation Room 3. Detective Carlos Ramirez, calm voice, no aggression, sat across the table. Mr. Johnson, let's talk. Tell me what happened on the bridge. Maybe we can clear this up quick. Malik looked him in the eye, voice level and respectful. Detective, I respectfully invoke my right to remain silent and request an attorney immediately. I will not answer any questions without counsel present. Ramirez nodded slowly. Understood. But in the hallway outside, Officer James White was already high-fiving another patrolman, bragging, another one off the street. These guys think they can play dress-up and get away with it. Malik sat alone under the harsh light, wrists still locked behind him, uniform ruined, body aching. He had done nothing wrong. Yet here he was treated like a criminal because a white officer decided a black man on a bicycle in a pilot uniform had to be lying. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been judged guilty before you even opened your mouth simply because of how you looked? Drop your honest answer in the comments. Malik sat in Interrogation Room 3 for another hour and 17 minutes. The fluorescent bulb overhead buzzed like an angry insect. His wrists throbbed under the steel cuffs, circulation long gone, fingers numb and swollen. The taser burns on his chest felt like hot coals pressed against skin every time he breathed. No one offered medical attention. No one removed the cuffs. He stared at the gray wall and counted his breaths to stay centered. 1, 2, 3, Emma's bedtime story voice in his head. Daddy read the one about the brave pilot again. At 6:29 p.m., the door opened. Two men in dark suits entered. One black, mid-40s, calm eyes, the other white, younger, carrying a tablet. They identified themselves quietly. Special Agent Marcus Hale, DEA San Francisco Field Division. Special Agent Elena Vasquez, same office. Hale looked at Malik's ruined uniform, the bruise blooming purple on his forehead, the crooked pilot wings. His jaw tightened. Agent Johnson, Hale said softly, "We're here." "You're safe now," Malik exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. "Took you long enough." Vasquez stepped forward, produced a key, and unlocked the cuffs. Malik's arms fell forward, blood rushed back in painful waves. He flexed his fingers slowly. Hale placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We got the call from the CI when you didn't show, tracked your last known location to the bridge, then we pulled traffic cam footage. Saw the whole thing." Outside the room, chaos was already unfolding. Sergeant Ruiz had been quietly reviewing the Bodycam upload from White's unit. The footage, crystal clear, showed no resistance, no reach for a weapon. Just a calm man identifying himself, hands visible, complying step by step. Then the taser, point blank, no warning, no de-escalation attempt. Ruiz forwarded the file upstairs with one line. "This is bad." By 6:45 p.m., the watch commander called Internal Affairs. By 7:03 p.m., two plainclothes detectives from the SFPD Professional Standards Unit arrived. They requested Officer James White report to the captain's office immediately. White walked in still smirking, vest unbuttoned, coffee in hand. "What's up, Cap?" "Got the bike thief locked down tight." The captain, a stern woman named Captain Linda Hayes, didn't smile. She turned the monitor, played the bridge footage, White's face drained of color. That's not the full story," he resisted. Hayes cut him off. "We have multiple angles now, tourist phones, bridge cams, your own body-worn." He never moved aggressively. "You deployed deadly force. Taser is considered deadly in California without justification," White stammered. He was impersonating. Hale and Vasquez entered the room at that moment, badges out. Special Agent Malik Johnson is not impersonating anyone. He is a decorated DEA undercover operative. That uniform, part of his cover for Operation Blue Horizon, targeting aviation-linked narcotics trafficking. "You just assaulted a federal agent in the line of duty," White's eyes darted. I didn't know, you didn't ask," Vasquez said coldly. "You saw a black man on a bike in a pilot uniform and decided he was a criminal. That's the pattern, that's the problem." The captain nodded to two uniformed officers waiting outside. "Officer White, you are under arrest for assault under color of authority, false imprisonment, and violation of civil rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. Section 242, cuff him." White's hands shook as they spun him around. The same steel cuffs that had cut into Malik's wrists now clicked on White's. He was led out past the holding cells, past the booking desk, past Sergeant Ruiz, who looked away in disgust. White kept muttering, "This is a mistake, I was just doing my job." Malik, meanwhile, sat in the medical bay. A department EMT checked his vitals. Blood pressure elevated. Minor concussion from the fall, taser puncture wounds cleaned and bandaged. He refused pain meds, said he needed a clear head for debrief. Hale sat beside him. "The operation is intact, CI is secure. We rolled up 2 mid-level distributors this evening based on your last intel drop. You did your job, this wasn't on you." Malik looked at his torn uniform. "Tell that to my kids when I come home looking like I lost a fight." At 8:41 p.m., federal marshals arrived to take custody of Officer James White. He was transported to the Federal Detention Center pending arraignment. Bail denied, flight risk and danger to the community cited, given his history of excessive force complaints. The U.S. Attorney's Office fast-tracked charges. Evidence was overwhelming. Video from 6 angles, witness statements from 12 tourists, Malik's pristine credentials, 0 contraband on the bike or person. Malik finally stood, legs still shaky, but voice strong. "I want to go home to my family tonight." Hale nodded. "You will, and tomorrow we make sure this never happens to another agent or another citizen." Comment, hold them accountable if you think repeated complaints like White's should end careers before they end lives. The federal courthouse in San Francisco buzzed with quiet intensity the following morning. August 15, 2022. 9:14 a.m. U.S. Attorney's Office had already convened a task force. 3 DEA agents from Malik's division, 2 FBI civil rights investigators, 1 DOJ prosecutor specializing in law enforcement misconduct, and a team of forensic video analysts. They pulled every frame from White's body-worn camera, every tourist cell phone video uploaded to the bridge security office, every traffic cam angle covering the walkway. Total footage. 147 minutes of crystal clear evidence. The analysts synced the timestamps. At 3:49 and 12 seconds p.m., White's first verbal command. At 3:50 and 41 seconds, Malik's hands raised, palms open, voice calm on audio. At 3:51 and 3 seconds, White's hand on the taser holster. At 3:51 and 19 seconds, deployment. No visible threat, no sudden movement from Malik, just compliance. The knee on the back lasted 47 seconds. Cuffs applied at excessive tightness. Medical photos later showed deep lacerations and bruising consistent with prolonged vascular occlusion. Witness statements poured in. 12 tourists gave formal affidavits. A retired nurse from Seattle described Malik's demeanor as polite to a fault. He never raised his voice once. A German family of 4 confirmed the same. The officer seemed angry from the moment he got out of the car. One jogger, a black software engineer who lived nearby, told investigators, "I've seen that look before. It wasn't about the bike. It was about who he saw." Investigators dug into White's history. 7 prior use of force incidents since 2015, 4 involving tasers, 3 sustained complaints for excessive force, 2 settled civil suits totaling $412,000 in taxpayer money. Department records showed White had received additional training 6 times, yet no suspensions, no demotions. The pattern was clear. Repeated aggression, mostly toward people of color, always ending with within-policy rulings. Until now, the U.S. Attorney filed charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, and 18 U.S.C. Section 111, assaulting a federal officer. White's arraignment happened at 2:00 p.m. that same day. He appeared in orange jumpsuit, shackled at wrists and ankles. The judge denied bail again. Given the defendant's history of escalating force and the severity of the video evidence, the court finds him a danger to the community and a flight risk. Malik spent the day in debrief at the DEA field office. He gave a full statement, voice steady, details precise. He described every second, the calm approach, the raised hands, the sudden taser without warning. He showed the medical report. Second-degree burns from the probes, mild concussion, nerve irritation in both wrists that would take weeks to heal. But he refused victim status. "I'm not the first this has happened to. I won't be the last unless something changes." By week's end, the SFPD chief held an internal review. Officer James White was terminated effective immediately for cause, citing violation of use of force policy, dishonesty in reports, and conduct unbecoming an officer. His badge was collected, his service weapon confiscated, his name added to the Brady list. Prosecutors could no longer call him credible in court. The criminal trial moved fast, federal court. Jury selection in October 2022. Opening statements played the bridge video on a courtroom screen. Jurors watched in silence as Malik complied, as White escalated as the taser crackled. The defense argued reasonable mistake. White genuinely believed the credentials were fake. The prosecution countered with the pattern. 7 prior incidents, racial demographics of complainants, 5 black, 2 Latino, White's own recorded comments in locker room footage from an unrelated IA probe. Some folks just need a firm hand to learn respect. Closing arguments lasted 4 hours. The jury deliberated for 9, guilty on all counts. Sentencing came December 14, 2022. Judge Elena Morales called White's actions a betrayal of public trust and a clear abuse of authority. She sentenced him to 48 months in federal prison, 3 years for the civil rights violation, 1 additional for assaulting a federal officer. No parole eligibility until 85% served. White was led away in cuffs. For the first time since the bridge, he looked small. Malik attended sentencing in civilian clothes, dark suit, tie, pilot wings pinned to the lapel as a quiet reminder. He did not speak, he didn't need to. The system had finally spoken back. A civil rights lawsuit followed quickly. Malik v. City and County of San Francisco, filed January 2023. The complaint detailed false arrest, excessive force, racial discrimination, failure to train, and deliberate indifference. Discovery revealed internal emails from 2019 onward warning about White's pattern, warnings ignored. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever seen a system finally hold someone accountable after years of warnings ignored? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you believe officers with repeated excessive force histories should never get another chance to ruin lives, type real consequences below right now. Malik Johnson walked out of the federal courthouse on December 14, 2022, head high, shoulders squared despite the lingering ache in his wrists. The city settled his civil lawsuit out of court in June 2023 for $4.8 million, one of the largest individual payouts in San Francisco history for police misconduct involving a federal agent. The money went straight into a trust for his children's education and a nonprofit he founded. Wings of Justice, providing free aviation camps and legal aid for families affected by wrongful police encounters. Malik never touched a dime for himself. "This isn't about the money," he said. "It's about making sure the next man doesn't have to go through what I did." Officer James White served 39 months of his 48-month sentence at FCI Lompoc before being released on supervised release in March 2026. He lost his pension, his badge, his gun rights, and any future in law enforcement. The SFPD added his name to a public list of officers with sustained excessive force findings. No department in California would hire him again. His story became a training case, the example of what happens when complaints pile up and no one acts until it's too late. At a packed press conference on the steps of City Hall, July 12, 2023, Malik stood at the podium in a fresh Air Force dress uniform, the one he wore that day now repaired and pressed. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned in. He spoke slowly, voice steady and powerful. "I am not here as a victim. I am here as proof that the system can be fixed, but only when we demand it. I was tased, falsely arrested, and humiliated because one officer saw my skin color and decided I didn't belong in that uniform on that bridge. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. 7 prior complaints. Millions already paid out. And still nothing changed until a federal agent was on the receiving end." He paused, looked directly into the lenses. "To every black man, every brown man, every person who has been pulled over, stopped, questioned, or worse, simply for existing in this country, I see you. Your stories matter, your pain is real. And we will not stop until qualified immunity is reformed, until repeated complaints trigger automatic review and removal, until training means something more than a checkbox." He stepped back. The mayor spoke next, promises of reform, new oversight board, mandatory bias training. But the crowd remembered who had forced the conversation, Malik Johnson. Now the bigger picture, across the United States. Black drivers are 23% more likely to be stopped than white drivers, according to Stanford Open Policing Project data from 2014-2023. Black individuals are 3.5 times more likely to experience force during a stop. In 68% of cases where tasers are deployed, the subject is non-white. From 2015 to 2024, at least 1,247 people died after police used tasers, 32% black, despite being 13% of the population. Qualified immunity-protected officers in 57% of excessive force civil suits between 2005 and 2023. Departments paid out $3.2 billion in police misconduct settlements from 2010 to 2020. Only 1.1% of officers involved in misconduct complaints face termination. Black veterans report higher rates of discriminatory policing post-service than white veterans, 41% versus 18%. In traffic stops, black drivers are searched 2.1 times more often. Yet contraband is found less often, 24% versus 34% for white drivers. The DOJ has investigated 72 police departments since 1994 for patterns of unconstitutional policing. 41 showed racial bias. Reform efforts stalled in Congress for qualified immunity in 2021-2024. In 2023 alone, 1,176 people were killed by police, 27% black. Studies show implicit bias training reduces force incidents by only 48% without structural change. These are not just numbers, they are lives. They are fathers like Malik, sons, daughters, husbands. People who serve this country and still get treated like suspects on their own streets. So here we are at the end of this story. But the questions remain. What will it take for the next Malik Johnson to ride across a bridge or walk down a sidewalk without fear? How many more patterns must we ignore before we demand real change? Before I go, let me ask you one final time. Have you ever felt the weight of a system that protects the wrong people while punishing the innocent? Drop your honest answer in the comments. If stories like this remind you why accountability matters, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and join me for the next one. We keep shining light until the darkness has nowhere left to hide. Type "justice served" in the comments if you believe good men like Malik deserve better and bad actors like White deserve consequences. See you in the next one.